With a doubleheader between the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls, and then you have the Los Angeles Lakers taking on tonight. I think it's the San Antonio
Spurs. So 2 big games on TNT. There's no doubt it was an awesome off season. We saw, last season how the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Heat had a three. San Antonio Spurs blew up in Game 6, and then Game 7 they just tossed the series away. It was an awesome series between these two giants, in the Heat and Spurs. And coming into this season, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Big Three in Miami, the Big Three in San Antonio. You're going to have teams coming up that are going to, make their name known as to be one of the best teams in the National Basketball Association. You got teams like Detroit are coming up. They went and signed some big-time free agents this offseason and two separate deals in terms of bringing in veterans that have won the championship in Detroit before, and Chauncey Billups, bringing him home again from the Clippers, bringing in Brandon Jennings in a kind of a 3-team trade that they did with the Milwaukee Bucks, sending Brandon Knight and a few other young players to the Milwaukee Bucks. I think with Jennings, here's a guy that has the ability to make his team better. One of the purest three-point shooters in the sport. Here's a guy left-handed, he's great court vision, a good point guard. He loves to take the shot, but he's got to learn how to set up his teammates. I think that's a very important key for the Detroit Pistons. He's just got to learn how to become a true point guard. Especially with Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is a leader. I think this year you're going to see a lot of Jennings playing shooting guard and Chauncey playing point guard, because he's the leader of the team. He's a leader in the dressing room. He's just the leader. When you talk about leaders like Kevin Garnett with the Brooklyn Nets now, when he was with the Celtics, he was a big reason why Doc Rivers was a success, because he was a leader of the defense and he was a leader in the locker room or dressing room, whatever, the locker room. So, when it comes down to it, you need these guys to lead you into battle, lead you into war. So they lead you to win big games. So I think when it comes to leadership, Chauncey Billups will lead this team to the playoffs, because they acquired Josh Smith. I think with Josh Smith, he's going to bring something they've never had in Detroit before. A player that can shoot, jam, block shots. Man, he can do it all. Great defensively. He's an energy player. Sometimes, some nights, Josh Smith might not be in the game, but most nights when I watch Josh play, I think of a guy that has the ability, when he's on his game, there's no doubt in my mind, when he's on his game, he can be one of the game's top 7 players in the sport. No doubt about it. As good as Kobe, as good as LeBron, as good as Nello, as good as Wade, as good as all these others. Darren Williams, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Paul Gasol. Even Marc Gasol, and even Dwight Howard. When he's on his game, he's one of the top players in the sport. Even Brandon Jennings, he's one of the top point guards, one of the fastest point guards in the sport. There's no doubt. In modern times, these guys are great. And you added to Greg Monroe, who I think was going to have an outstanding year. I think this guy's going to have a career year. He'll be an all-star. I think Drummond's going to develop to the next level, playing with Chauncey, playing with Brandon Jennings. It's going to open up more space, especially with Josh Smith on this team. It's going to be a tough team to play against. They're going to have a lot of weapons. Even their bench looks pretty good. Kyle Singular, they have some really good pieces on the Pistons that you got to watch out for. They're a very, very tough team to guard, a very, very tough team to play against. So the Detroit Pistons in the Central Division, they're going to be tough. Then we move to the Chicago Bulls. The return of Derrick Rose, D Rose. Derrick Rose, didn't play for an entire year. This entire playoffs, I think he could have helped his team. I think he should have, but he didn't feel confident to play on the knee, so he sat out the entire year. So I think he's 100%. I was just watching Yahoo Sports, NBC, and they were talking about, Derrick is shooting at, close to 40-something% three-point wise in the preseason. He was averaging 27.7 points per game. I think 6.6 assists per game in the preseason.
Well, it's true, it is a preseason, but it looks like he's shooting at a better clip for 3-point. He's never been a great 3-point shooter, but this year maybe he might add that to his repertoire. He still has the speed. I felt he might lose some of that quickness because of the ACL, but we'll see what happens. I don't think he'll ever be the same Derrick Rose that we're all used to, but I think he's still going to be a dynamic player that gives the Chicago Bulls a better chance to win because they'll have someone that can score. They still have one of the better defensive teams in the entire Eastern Conference, especially with Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau is one of the great defensive coaches in the last 25 years. Him, Doc Rivers, and the Zed Master, Phil Jackson, and Jerry Sloan, as far as I'm concerned, some of the best defensive coaches, and Mike Brown this game's ever had. So, you can throw him up with the likes of, what's that guy? He coaches for the Duke Blue Devils, Mike Krzyzewski. That's another great defensive coach. And I compare them to them. You look at this team, you look at the stars on this team, they just got to work together. And you know what? Anything is possible. It's been since 1998 the last won a championship. Some experts say they might do it this year, but I don't think they will. I think they'll get knocked out probably in the second round. Because they're not, unless they add something at the trade deadline, I just don't see them be able to hang with the guys that can move, like the Knicks. The Knicks, they might struggle out the gate. They will scrape into the playoffs. That's all they need to do is get in the playoffs. Because once they get into the playoffs, I think they'll start playing New York Knicks basketball. Defensive, grind it out, get the ball to Melo or Tim Hardaway Jr. or whoever, or even Amari Stoudemire. I think Mario will start to get his knees back as the season goes on. They're going to start out the season, he'll probably average like 10, 15 minutes a game. And as the season progresses, as they get to the playoffs, and I think his knees will start to get back to normal, and I think he'll start to be the Amari Stoudemire they envisioned when they paid him $20 million a year. So he has 2 years left on his contract. So I think with Carmelo probably going to opt for free agency this season, the Knicks are going to go all in. They're going to try to win it this year. So I think the New York Knicks, being one of my favorite teams, I feel that they're going to be a tough team in the Eastern Conference. They're going to give the Chicago Bulls a lot of fits. I think Melo's going to have another good year. I think a lot of the young guys that they have are going to develop really quickly. J.R. Smith, if his head's on right, he will average close to 25 points a game, maybe off the bench or starting. I don't know how Mike Woodson's going to do it, but they got to get it going, man. They fired a GM this offseason in Glenn Grunwald. It made no sense in bringing Steve Mills. What? Seriously, why would you do that? When you really think about it. But when you really think about the New York Knicks, you think about winning, and that's what they got to do. They got to win. They got to be focused. They got to realize that time's running out for this team. They can only get so many chances of making the playoffs. You got to get it done. Your fans are getting mad. Brooklyn are getting everything. They got an all-star team, superstars, all-stars at every position. They look good. Their bench looks better than the Knicks. They got to get it going. They got to get it going, as far as I'm concerned. When you look at the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, we take a look at the Brooklyn Nets in the Atlantic Division. We look at a team here that they went out and acquired some of the biggest pieces in the world when they did the big blockbuster trade and brought Terry in and Garnett and Pierce for the likes of Chris Humphries, Joe Wallace, and a bunch of the young players and basketballs and draft picks. They went to Boston, so Boston's going to be a full rebuild this year. But I think the Boston Celtics will be good coming into this season. They're going to be bad, but they won't be as bad as most people think they'll be bad. So when you're looking at the Nets, they're going to have Garnett and Pierce. They're going to get a little bit less pressure from defenses. They'll get their shots off. They'll play amazing defense. They'll win a lot of games, this Nets team. It's up to Deron Williams and it's up to Brook Lopez if they can stay healthy enough for this team to maybe get to the finals. We'll just have to see. But they got the leadership. They got all the pieces you need to win a championship. They just need to put it all together. I think this is a team that could knock out the Heat or even the Bulls. They just have all the pieces that you need to win a championship. So when it comes down to it, the Brooklyn Nets for me are one of the favorites to probably win it all this year. Up there with the San Antonio Spurs, the Miami Heat, the Chicago Bulls, Oklahoma City Thunder, who I think are weak. Los Angeles Lakers, I still think they're a playoff team. They can just get in, especially with Steve Nash. I know this guy. I've watched him since he was playing in Phoenix. He never gives up, never gives in. And, Mike D'Antoni, he loves to play fast-paced basketball. And I think the Lakers will be a team to watch out for. They will make the playoffs. It's one of my predictions. They're going to be tough. The Clippers are going to be tough with Doc Rivers. They're going to be a team you have to watch out for. They got a lot of good pieces on that team. Blake Griffin, of course. J.J. Redick they brought in, and countless other pieces. Matt Barnes is back, so we'll see what happens. In the end, it's all about team. Team wins games. Denver Nuggets with the new coach and Brian Shaw. We'll see what happens. Some new coaches that are on new teams this year. Same thing in Milwaukee. Same thing in Atlanta. When you look at Milwaukee now, they got a new coach in Larry Drew, who was a head coach for the Atlanta Hawks for many, many years. So now it's going to be up to Larry Drew to turn this Milwaukee Bucks team into a more consistent team making the playoffs every year. And who knows, anything's possible. They got a different team this year. They got no more Monte Ellis. They got no more Brandon Jennings. But, they still have Ilyasova. They still have Larry Sanders. And they've brought in the young Brandon Knight. So we'll just have to see what they do this year. But I still think the Milwaukee Bucks are a playoff team. Philadelphia 76ers are in rebuild mode. They've recently released troubled young shooting guard Royce White, who doesn't like to fly. So that's his NBA career for you. He's done. So he's released for now. So maybe some team might give him a chance in the future, but right now I think Royce White is probably done for right now. So you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, they have a pretty good young team. They have a lot of pieces. They're gunning for the draft, it looks like. They're not going to lose quite a few games, but we'll see what happens. They got a new coach. They got a new ownership. They got a lot of new stuff in Philadelphia. I just don't know if they got a team that's going to win. It's going to be a tough year for the Philadelphia fans. They're not going to be used to these losses like you've seen in Charlotte with the Bobcats and, even Sacramento for a period of time, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, a lot of these teams are going to continue to struggle. I think the Timberwolves will be a competitive team this year, especially with a healthy Kevin Love. And they've added some good young players and Shabazz Muhammad, and they've added some other great young talent in the draft. So we'll see what happens. Utah with Trey Burke, when he comes back from his injury, I think he's going to be a key. I think Gordon Hayward's going to have to score even more points, 20 points a game, if they're going to make the playoffs. They're a young team. They've gotten rid of Al Jefferson. They've gotten rid of Paul Millsap. So the fans in Utah, it could be a long year, but I still think Utah could scrape into the playoffs. But they're going to have to play some good defense. They're going to have to score a lot of points. They're going to have to work together to make it happen. I mean, Corbin, I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, he will get fired. I think Jerry Sloan wants to coach again, and I think there's no better team for him to come back to the team he coached for so many years, for 25 years. So I'd love to see him come back. So Tyrone Corbin has to get this team to the playoffs. If they don't get in the playoffs, I think the Miller family will probably let him go. So we will see what happens with Utah. It's a long season, especially in the Northwest Division. It's going to be tough with Oklahoma City and Portland. Portland with Damian Lillard, they're going to be a tough team, but I don't think they're a playoff team either. They're young, they're inexperienced still. They almost made the playoffs last year. But they still have a lot of pieces they need to add to be the type of team I feel that could one day win a championship. It's not 1979 anymore with Bill Walton win that championship. I think the best time for the Portland Trailblazers was 1999, 1998, even 2000. They had in those years, they had teams I felt if they could have got to the finals, they would have won it all. But they ran into buzzsaws called the Los Angeles Lakers, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Lakers again. So that's what happens, even Utah Jazz. If everything comes together, I think Paul Allen's team might win a championship, but not this year. I'm sorry to say. So they're going to have a tough year. The Toronto Raptors, I think they'll make the playoffs, but they're going to win a lot of games, but they're going to lose a lot of games. So it's going to be a bit of up and down. But as long as they make the playoffs, I think the fans of Toronto and Canada are going to be really proud of this team because maybe one day we'll get a team in Vancouver again. I'm hoping. It's been too long since the Grizzlies left this place. I mean, the Memphis Grizzlies have been awesome. They made the playoffs last year. I don't think they're going to make it this year. They got a new coach. He wants to play more of an up-tempo style, I was hearing, and they're more of a back to the basket, old school style. Get the ball into the paint to Randolph and Gasol. So the Grizzlies are going to struggle a little bit this year, but I don't know. They might make the playoffs. If they do, they'll be a 6th seed. That's my guess. But I don't think they might not make the playoffs this year because I think the Timberwolves, the Utah Jazz, the Lakers, and these are the teams I think are playoff teams. The Pelicans are going to be bad. They're going to lose about 60 games, maybe 50 games, 55 games. They'll probably win maybe 22, but they'll be real bad. I mean, there's some teams there. They got some good young pieces. Drew Holiday, of course. They got Anthony Davis, big deal. He's made of glass. Teams in the NBA are going to play him physical. That I just feel that the Pelicans are going to struggle, and they're going to struggle just like the Bobcats. They're going for that draft. You got Wiggins, you got Smart, you got all these great young players coming into 2014 draft. I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be between the 76ers, the Bobcats, the Pelicans, and even the Sacramento Kings going for that number 1 pick. Unfortunately, I think the Golden State Warriors are going to be a playoff team. I don't know how far they're going to get, maybe just to the first round. They got a good team. It depends how Andrew Bogut plays. Iguodala I think will be okay. I think Curry's ankles are not gonna. They're gonna give in on him. He's gonna struggle a lot this year because of the ankle problems. But he's gonna score a high percentage. He showed that in the playoffs. He showed that he's one of the best players in the league. So that's all I gotta say for today, folks. In terms of the NBA season preview, we'll see what happens. The NBA is a long season, 82 games. We'll see what happens come April. But, hey, this is the regular season. I think these teams are going to be competitive. Your elite teams like San Antonio, Miami, Los Angeles Lakers, the Los Angeles Clippers, Boston Celtics will be really bad this year. Philadelphia probably will be too. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to be real bad. The Knicks will be good. The Raptors, I think, will be good. The Pistons will be good. Bucks will be just on the borderline. They might not make the playoffs, but they'll be a heck of a team to watch. It'll be a lot of fun to watch that team play. Bobcats will be bad. Sacramento Kings will be bad. There'll be some teams that are just going to struggle the whole year. But, they're going to give everything they got. They're going to give their fans what they got. And that's all I got to give you. So this is Mark Spencer saying so long for the NBA season preview 2013-14 season for October. What's the date today, folks? For October 29th, Tuesday, October 29th. The season begins tonight on TNT, Turner Sports. I mean, Charles, Shaq, Kenny, Ernie. I mean, all those guys are coming back. So enjoy those guys tonight. Thanks for watching. This is Mark Spencer for NBA Review Today, Trade Rumors, you name it. Season previews here. Hope to make a ton more videos as the season progresses. I'm glad you enjoy my vids on YouTube, folks. I love doing them. Facebook, whatever, media, social media. I just love to give my opinion on a few things in the world of sports. Something I've watched since I was little. And when I was in high school, I played basketball, but I wasn't the best. I only made the B team, but I tried. I kept trying every single year to make the team. Never did. But till this day, I still play a little pickup basketball, recreational. But I understand if you love something, you'll continue to want to get better at it. So all you kids out there, if you want to play basketball, just go for it, man. Try out for the team. Never give up. Man, Michael Jordan never made his high school team. Remember that, folks. And he's the greatest player of all time. Some say LeBron James is going to be the greatest player of all time. No, it's only Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan will be the greatest player of all time. LeBron James will be one of the greatest players in the history of Cleveland sports basketball. Or sports, if he goes back to Cleveland. Like I'm hearing, he will. So we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting season with all these teams. But we'll see what happens, folks. I'll see you again. The season's early. It's a long season to go. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of entertainment. The recent trade of Marcin Gortat, I think it was a good deal for the Wizards. Emeka Okafor is not the same player he once used to be. You know, being the second overall pick in the 2004 draft, right behind Howard, I felt Okafor would have a better career. But you know, the injuries have really got to this guy. He may never live up to the hype when he was with the Connecticut Huskies, where he was a dominant force. Him and Ben Gordon. It happens. You know, look at Greg Oden. It's the same thing. He's getting another chance at living up to the hype when he plays for the Heat this year. They just need him on the court. They got to play a little defense and score some big buckets when they need it. So with Okafor, we'll see what happens. You know, Gortat, I think, is going to help out the Wizards. They recently waived all three of the players that went with them there: Shannon Brown, Malcolm Lee, and Kendall Marshall. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers signed both Brown and Marshall before the season starts, or maybe during the season they'll probably sign those guys. Because Steve Nash, those are his guys, man. It's Shannon Brown, especially Shannon Brown. And Kendall Marshall's a good young backup point guard to go with Nash, you know, and you know Steve Blake in Los Angeles, and some other players that they already have. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers acquire both those players. I think Malcolm Lee will probably end up in the D League, or maybe with the Boston Celtics. You know, that's what happens. You know, waiving time. A lot of players get waived. Stephen Curry's younger brother, Steph Curry, got released recently, waived. So he probably end up playing for the minor league team for the Golden State Warriors. You know, and a few other good young players that have been waived across the league. But don't ever give up on your dream, guys. Remember, you got a chance to play in the NBA. You got a chance to play even in a preseason game, to make a team. You had an opportunity. Just continue your opportunities. If you play in Europe, you play anywhere in the world, just go out there and go for your opportunities. Play the game you love to play. Basketball is a great game. It's really become a global game. I think everybody in the world can play basketball. You just need a basketball, get some basketball shoes, get some shorts, and just go out there and show what you got. You don't have to be the best player. Just go out there and have fun, man. That's what life is all about. Just go out there, be you, be the best you can be. As far as I'm concerned, happy Halloween, folks. NBA fans, I'm glad to say the NBA is back. Bye-bye.